Hi, Corey. Thank you for joining us.
Hi, Barry. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, so this is my inaugural podcast, and happy to have Corey as my first guest. He's someone I've long admired through the Facebook Zen world. He's been very gracious with his time and chatting with me over the years, giving me advice and insight, and I'm excited to talk about him here and learn more about his web journey. his Zen journey. Um, Corey, could you talk a little bit about the work you do now, what your relationship to Zen is, the energy work that you do, just to create a little bit of context of who you are and what your relationship to Zen is, and kind of what you're doing these days.
Yeah, great. Yeah, again, thanks for having me. Well, I would say I'm a Zen priest, and I was ordained because that was 2004, something like that. But I would say my work now is very much still a fruition of all of that. And lately, what I've been doing is I'm leading these classes and month-long retreats with this community of practitioners kind of all over the world. It's been pretty fantastic. Most of what I'm teaching these days is standing meditation in a few different forms. And I found these extremely helpful in my own process of getting into my practice. So they really get things cooking. And so we've got this great community of people. It's just a really sincere group. People really change. It's been fantastic. We started, a few years ago now. So I'm doing that, and that's about half my work. And then I still do kind of healing work, physical healing work in my office. I do distance healing stuff, which I never would have thought to do until the pandemic hit. And then I had to kind of bring that gear out. And then, I do little Zoom calls talking with people about their process and meditation and energetic stuff. So yeah, that's mostly what I'm doing these days. I'm a dad. I have my wife is a big theater person here on the island, and been supporting her and being a dad. That's a lot of what I do.
You're are you in Whidbey Island, Washington still? Is that where you guys live?
Yep. Yep. We're in Langley, uber cute Langley,
Is that pretty rural, or is that like the suburban world up there, or what's that like?
Well, that's a good question, right? I mean, it seems like in a way it's kind of all suburban Seattle now, people do commute from South Whidbey to like Boeing. That is something people do. So in that way, it's kind of like a suburb, but you do have to take a ferry to get here, unless you drive up the north end, which is an hour away. So, but yeah, it has a definitely, you take a big breath when you get on the island. It is very relaxed here in a certain way.
Great.
Yeah.
So could you talk a little bit about, without going into too much detail about your childhood, what were the kind of the major themes as they related to what kind of motivated you to get into Zen practice? What were your questions? What were some, axiomatic events that led to that path?
Yeah. I think they talk about the great doubt. This is a big thing in Zen and Buddhism, and for me, I was a person very early. There was this aspect of truth that I knew was there, and nothing that I did, nothing that should have kind of feel real or should have felt satisfying. I felt like I needed to realize something. I was like deeply concerned about what I would do with my life, how I would.
Is this as a child or a teenager?
This is as a child.
Mm-hmm.
So, I'd be in the car with my mom, and she'd be trying to kind of coach me, like, you can do whatever you want, in your life. And I kind of knew that, but there was this aspect, even as a child, where well, I was really chewing on something very early. And it was that I just really I couldn't live from this place that somehow I intuitively knew was there. And 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 so that was much of the driving force for me. Even as a kid, I was a serious kid, very sensitive. You see people suffering, and you see elderly people suffering, and it deeply affected me. You see all kinds of suffering around you. Even as a normal kid in the Midwest of the States, I had not a special childhood at all. But somehow I was chewing on something very deeply, even from an early age. I didn't really have a venue to explore that.
Was your family religious, either casually or no?
Casually, yeah. I mean, we went to, you put your penny loafers on. You go to the Baptist church once a couple times a month, or something. And don't know what to do there. And it was kind of a social thing, but not really. Not really. I really longed for that, and I found it in nature. We lived pretty far out in the country, and so I kind of found that in nature. Some mystery that I could feel into.
Did you have any, what's the right word? Kind of intuitive connection to Asian culture? Like, did you do martial arts? Were you into kung fu films? Did you?
Yeah, I love the kung fu films.
Yeah.
They really hit me. They really resonated somehow. Yeah, I was in the basement of our house there watching. We what do you want to do, Cora? We go to the Radio Shack, and we get a kung fu movie, bring it home, and I'd watch that a couple times. And it wasn't so much the violence for me as it was that there was some aspect where someone could go and they could train in such a way that they would transform and be able to saturate in something a bit deeper. That really appealed to me in some way.
How about Star Wars? Was that seminal to you at all?
Star Wars, yeah. I mean, totally.
Yeah,
Star Wars.
I think you're younger than I am, but I think you're still somewhat close to generation where I really wonder how much of my generation's interest in Zen comes from, the Jedis, and let go, Luke.
Completely, completely, and I'm what am I? I'm going to be 45 next month. So
okay, you're 4 years younger than me.
A little younger, yeah. But yes, very much so. And supposedly they took. I heard a couple stories, but I heard that they took Yoda's language from Yasutani Roshi. I heard that.
Oh, really? I'd never heard that. That's fascinating.
I had thought it was Tibetan, but I had recently heard it was Yasutani. People like to make up stuff. But it's a good story. It's a good story. So no, in energy and this, the force and all that was very, mysterious to me. And then there was a big sports guy, and sports for me were they were a venue to explore, again, training. That was like our church in the Midwest. Our church was basketball and baseball and football, and seeing, like, if you really dove into something, that sometimes things really opened up, and
like a flow state.
Flow state. You talk about the zone, and there are a lot of books on that, but I think at least they give you a taste of there's a deeper level of something going on here if I can somehow get in touch with that. So I found that in sports. I found some times when I was playing kind of football out in the yard with a bunch of friends, and everything would slow down and I could move, but it felt like nobody else could move, and that shook me up. Oh, what is going on here? So yeah, movement and the body. I still am so fascinated with these energetic fields moving through space. I think that's always been my kind of entry point into this.
Did you do any formal martial arts or Tai Chi or anything like that as a child or teenager?
I did a little bit, but
Yeah.
not really.
Yeah.
I didn't. I was in
Local McDojo type of thing.
yeah. And it was, they asked me if my mom, if they could spank me, if I did wrong. Like my mom was like, "No, we're out of here." So it was a small towny. So no, not too much, not too much. And yeah, I think those sports were that for me. And you see some of these beautiful athletes and what they seem to just float, they seem to be connected, yeah.
How about I know it's a little touchy subject for some, but either in high school or college, did you dabble in psychedelics at all? Was that
Yes.
an influence on your
Yes.
path at all?
That was and just to say, like, looking back, I think people who knew me after I'd gone to Japan, they thought, well, we wondered what was going to happen to you, Corey, because we thought either you'd be a heroin addict or you figure something out. And so I went to Japan. I wasn't really into too hard of stuff, but no, I was
More exploration than partying.
More exploration than partying. I wasn't the best partier. I was a pretty serious guy. I was always the most intense person in the room. But yeah, I did some things there in college. And then another story for another day, perhaps, is I did these. I took some mushrooms at one point when I had come back from Japan, and they were a big help for me, actually. So that's really
interesting.
Yeah.
Okay. So in college, did you do any sort of spiritual practice? Did you meditate? Did you do any Tai Chi or Aikido or anything like that? Or
yeah, I did get into some meditation stuff. I went for a couple of years in to school in Tallahassee, Florida. We moved to Florida when I was 16, and so I went for a couple of years in Tallahassee. And at one point, I did this report on. It was a religious studies course, and it was really beautiful for me. And I did a report on these Krishnas. It was awesome. I went there and I had their food, and they do their yoga on the hardwood floor. It was really hard. I was this athlete, they're all tight, and so it just killed me, but it was really interesting for me to see people, they were kind of shaved down. Everything was, they didn't have anything. And they were just these electric bodies walking around. I found that very appealing. It wasn't,
you saw them in person. It wasn't just
like went to their house, went to the Vedic Center, and they made me, potato pancakes or something.
So that was your first taste of Eastern spirituality?
I would say that was one. And then, going through the library, I think in Montana, there were a couple of books on Zen, a couple of books I think I had read books in high school on Buddhism, but there were a couple of photographed books of Zen in the library in college. I can't remember if it was either in Missoula or in.
I think we talked about it, like the Zen Life. I think I maybe have
the Zen Life, and that really profoundly hit me. Again.
That book was huge influence on me too. I remember looking through that book, knowing I would live at a monastery at some point. Just
Yes. Yeah. So yeah, and then I got really. I wanted to be a writer. I thought I want to be a poet, farmer poet. I thought I was going to be a farmer poet. There was a great program in Missoula, and we were reading a lot of Gary Snyder. We were. Okay. Of course, I was reading a lot of Jack Kerouac and all. We thought we were Jack Kerouac, Missoula is kind of like that, and now Sakaki, one of my favorites. But yeah, so I wrote Gary. I wrote Gary an email, and I said, I want to go to Japan and I want to do some Zen training and be a writer like you. I was pretty desperate, and he said, wait a second. go to the place on Whidbey. There's a real teacher who's starting a place there, and
And this is Harada.
yep, Harada Roshi, and that was Tahoma, one drop on Whidbey Island here, and so I wrote a couple of people, got involved, and I came out here that first time. That was when I was I think it was early 2000, something, or maybe 99 or 2000, that I came out for the first time, and I was here, and the head monk was there, and it was overwhelming for me, and it was nothing like I expected, and I got out. I left. Yeah.
In what ways did it differ from your expectation?
Yeah.
Was it not all rainbows and butterflies and
yeah, it was yeah. Again, I feel like when you're confronted with something powerful like that. For me, it was very intense. Confronted by, the head monk there was, I feel, a really amazing person, a certain freedom coming.
This wasn't the Roshi, there was another head monk.
This was not the head monk yet. And, this was not the Roshi yet. This was the head monk. That's Yusan Doyu. And Doyu was amazing to me. And he was charismatic and, beautiful, and, shaved head, and he's still beautiful with they don't have any clothes, these dumb, crazy clothes, and, they're living there, and they have their rain boots, and, so dialed down. There's nothing extra there, and yet so beautiful, and also really sharp. So I would say something, my normal techniques of interacting with people, and shut down or smashed.
What kind of infrastructure did they have there at that point? Was it actually a functioning center? Was like there a Zendo or a Soto or?
I mean, that's a good story. I mean, yes, the Zendo. What happened was, I forget what year it was, 96 or 7 or something. They bought the land, and then they bought these trailers, these nice trailers, double wides, and they brought them in because the Roshi was going to move the next day. You know what I mean?
Okay.
He's coming like the next day, and he never actually moved here, but so people were disappointed. But so they brought in these really nice double wide trailers, and there was already a yurt there and a hermitage that people had built, small hermitage and a yurt. And then they brought in these 2 buildings, and then and so those were there. And then the kitchen was also there, which is a beautiful kitchen. So there was enough stuff there. The Zendo was fully there and everything. I slept in the Zendo, and that's still the Zendo today. Yeah.
And was there a regular monastic schedule? Was there waking up at 5 and choka and chanting?
Yes. There wasn't sanzen, but there was. It was real beautiful, really quiet out there. Just me and 2 other guys at that point with the deer, and eating our oatmeal in the morning, and chanting, and sitting morning and night, and working during the day. And but again, it was really intense for me, and I felt pretty exposed, and unconsciously I didn't really know what to do with it, and so I left. How
long did you stay there?
It was only like 5 days, 4 days or something.
Okay.
I'm out of here. And I went, and I'm going to go travel. I'm going to go live my life. And I don't need that. It had hit me deeply, and I went traveling, and I've said this before, but I realized I was in Cuba. I was traveling around, and I really realized that there was something I needed to discover in order to enjoy anything in my life, to really be satisfied with anything. I had to be coming from a different place. And I had always known that. And it just going there to Tahoma, and then leaving and seeing, I really can't be in that place. I can't fake it. And again, the great doubt for me was very urgent. So I realized, I was compelled to go back. And when I went back, back in the States, and then I emailed them, and they, "Oh, come on out, you can go out, come on out." And I went out, and the Roshi was there for a 7-day retreat. It was day 4, something like that, day 3.
Like a formal session.
Formal session, yep.
Mm-hmm.
And 50 people or something like that, and the whole deal,
Mm-hmm.
And I went in, and I can tell that story if you like. I met the Roshi.
Yeah, please do.
Okay. Well, it's so strange. It's such a strange environment. You've never really been anything like this. All these people, I'd go into lunch, went into the lunch, they were having lunch, they're chanting really loud and aggressively and fast. And, these kind of normal looking people all dressed in these clothes, and they're kind of sweaty, they're they look ragged, they're there eating their rice really fast, and it's kind of a weird, half violent scene. What the heck is going on here? And the Roshi's there, and he's kind of this maniac at the top of the table, and he has these huge chopsticks. Like somebody gave them to him, I learned later, but these huge, what the hell? Where am I? And it's just a weird scene. But somehow he had figured out that I was there. Somebody had told him, and he kind of knew, oh, that's a young, kind of healthy,
fresh
young, fresh meat, kind of burning a little too hot, my kind of guy. He could maybe see a similar species. And so he invited me to come have tea, and so you go into, his house was there at that point too. Sorry, I forgot to mention that. His house, and that's where they do Sanzen. It's very beautiful, actually. Sort of Pacific Northwest meets Japanese architecture. It's really beautiful. So I went in and had tea in his house, and and he's just so profoundly powerful. Yeah. It was really like meeting human possibility for me. It was like saying, here is that thing you've been looking for, and you've been not just looking, but feeling is true, and then meeting that physically in a person. And so like all my cells just lit up, and that's what it's like to be around someone like that. All of your cells who've been sort of waiting, they kind of light up. Oh my gosh, this is resonating. And he's sitting there, his voice is inconceivably deep. Like, what's going on here?
So is he speaking English, or is he being translated at this
being
point?
Translated at that point, and so it's weird. It's a weird scene. What am I doing here? And this guy's so I asked him. I was compelled. Why would someone like me go to Japan and train? And he looked at me, and and he said, what do you think? And well, I think it depends on the person. Everyone would be, maybe different why they would actually go. And he says, no, it's to realize why you were born, And that for me was, it was really a shakeup. I had nowhere to escape that, and I had nowhere to put it in my mental understanding of where to dodge, where to put that and be safe. And the Roshi's like that. He's he's on top of you. He's immense. His presence is it takes you over. And
is it unsettling, or is it comforting, or both?
Both.
Okay.
You're and yet he can be so loving too. So it's that all is once. He's very warm, but huge. And he's only 5 foot tall, something like that. He's huge but warm, and also you can tell this is a really scary person in a lot of ways, which is what I love. That was like, for me, that was I was always the most intense person. And so meeting the Roshi was someone more intense for me. That gave me space to be able to develop. And I really needed that with him.
So did he explicitly invite you out to Japan at this point, or what was that process?
I think that was pretty much it.
Yeah.
That was him saying that. And yeah, I think I don't know if we actually said that exactly, but I think it was clear I could go. And then I went and then later that year, like in the summer, somehow I got invited to go to Japan with that head monk. You took me with some elementary school students. We went to Japan on this special trip, and I got to be a chaperone, and we got to go to to Sogenji and go to Kyoto and Hiroshima and all that. And so I had already done O-session a few days of, So after I had, that's right. After I had that talk with the Roshi, I finished out the O-session there for 3 days.
Okay.
I got to have Sanzen with him, and that was, very powerful for me, but I wasn't really ready. So then I went to Japan with this group as this chaperone, and I was there, going through this weird schedule, this crazy schedule. All these foreigners are there. They really are like Jedi there, though. Like they look like Jedi. They have these robes. They're shaved. They're carrying keisaku, the stick, and it does feel like Jedi training. And it also feels like, what is this strange place? People dressing up, and so it's both incredibly impressive and shattering, and it's also like this weird place.
Are people in robes, or are they in what's the dress? What's the day-to-day dress there?
Day-to-day dress, you wear your samugi. During the day, you're always in samugi, samue, and which is the gi, and then the pants. And
even in the Zendo.
In the Zendo, you wear your formal clothing.
Okay, yeah.
So that if you're ordained, you wear a robe.
Is it a mix of Japanese and Westerners, or mostly Westerners, or what?
Mostly foreigners. I wouldn't necessarily say Westerners, but a lot of Westerners. Lots of foreigners. So people actually from India, people from Taiwan, lots of Westerners, lots of Europeans, lots of Eastern Europeans, Australians, so going to see the Roshi for that, I was able to go to Sanzen there, and it was very emotional for me. I was obviously I was being bombarded by this place. It's like an oven of essence and power, and it was very powerful for me, emotional, and I was hitting up like, this is what I've got to do with my life, and I wasn't quite ready to do it, but and so that hit me very deeply. I would go into Sanzen, I would be crying, and the Roshi was very gentle with me at that point, really supportive of me, and knowing that, this is a person who needs to discover this. It isn't an idea. It's not a good idea to do this training. It's a must, and that's what he's looking for, is people who they don't really have a choice. They've got to do this. And so he saw that in me.
And at this point, did you know you were going to practice there, or was it still up in the air?
I fought it for a long time. I really fought it.
So you went back to the States.
And back to the States, and I was bumbling around, and I actually first met my partner, my wife now. I first met her. We were both visiting the monastery at that point. And, and she was so she was there, and then we were both back for the summer on Whidbey, and then didn't want to go. I didn't want to go. I wasn't ready. No way, I don't want to go do that. Knowing I had to, but I couldn't.
So you were living at the Whidbey Island Zen Center.
Yeah, I was basically living at Tahoma, but I was trying to get away. I was running around, and then we had an O session in September, and day 6 was 9/11, and that really sealed the deal for me.
Mhm.
So, and having Sanzen with the Roshi for that week, that really sealed the deal for me. And so then I went in October to Japan, and that's where then I stayed there for several years.
So could you paint a little bit picture of the monastery there? Is it fairly traditional architecture? Is it within a forest? Is it in a suburb? Like kind of if you can paint a little bit of a physical picture of
Okay.
what it is, what the place is like, if you could.
Yeah, so it's at the base of a mountain,
Mhm.
and it's in Maruyama, which Okayama is a real city. That's a real city, and Maruyama is a little part of that city. And so there is a neighborhood around it.
Mhm.
Okay, and it's actually so the monastery is sort of here, and then everything there's a neighborhood around it, and all these houses traditionally would pay the monastery. That's how it worked in Japan,
Mhm.
some kind of tax or whatever, and so you're there, and it's a big place. It's I would say like the size of a big high school, that type of size, and so behind you have all this woods, and you have a beautiful pond, and so it feels tucked in there. You feel definitely feel safe. There are walls around it. It's very safe. And it's very beautiful. Lots of big trees, lots of work in the garden, lots of work everywhere. And like I said, it's a big place. The buildings are very traditional, huge hondo. The main hall is huge. It's a very beautiful temple.
Is
Yeah.
there a soto that the monks would sleep in, or do you have your own rooms, or how did that work?
Usually, traditionally, monks would sleep in the zendo.
Mhm.
And then when they got a job, they would go up to what's called Joju, the administrative building. But many of us would just sleep outside under the
Okay,
stars. What you do,
camping basically.
yeah, what you do is somehow you find a roof, and if there's some kind of roof, then you
Mhm.
don't get wet every morning. So
Mhm.
that's most of us. We would do that. We would find a spot. I used to sleep under the sanmon, which is this huge structure, and
The gate.
the gate, the big gate. Yep, the daimon, sanmon. Yep, and yep, used to sleep under there, and then you do your yas out there, your night sitting. Very beautiful, very beautiful. Yeah.
Would the local Japanese congregates, would they come for like ancestor ceremonies, and
Yeah.
did it serve that kind of temple role for the local community at all, or?
Yes. Yes. I think for sure, around the new year, and there would be ceremony. There was always some kind of ceremony going on there.
Mhm.
Um, so active temple, the Roshi, and then every month we would have a ceremony called Bishamon there, where a lot of the community would come in, and there would be a big tea ceremony. It's a real temple. It's a real place. But yet not a whole lot of Japanese monks come there, because the Roshi decided not to give the priest certification to these monks. So traditionally, what happens in Japan is you're a monk, your dad's a priest, you're a monk, you go to a place for 3 years, you get a certificate, and then you go and be a priest at that temple. And so the Roshi didn't give that. So that draw wasn't there for the Japanese. So it was like, you got to be here because you want to train, you want to dive deep. And honestly, a lot of times the Japanese would think, why is this huge Danish guy who's 7 foot tall been here 20 years? What they wouldn't understand it. They both be in awe and think it was totally crazy.
So was there a pretty established sangha at that point, as far as the practitioners? There'd been, when you showed up, there'd been practitioners there for decades at that point?
Yes.
Yeah. And
Yes.
what was it, would you say there's any like hazing, or was there any of that kind of vibe going on?
Yeah. I mean, there's some people that they're criminals. They couldn't survive anywhere else. They're institutionalized. They're there because they would end up in jail. So there's some unsettled people there. That's part of what these places are like, but
Mhm.
the Roshi is so profoundly intense, and the
Mhm.
place is so intense that I would say it's less than the traditional Soto,
Mhm.
where there. Plus, we came all the way from wherever we came from, so there's a little bit less of that. I think the Roshi he toned that down a little bit so
Mhm.
that there isn't the same level of some of the hazing of the Soto. Yep,
You know, I always pronounce that wrong, but Daiutakuji, am I saying that right? Um,
Daitokuji, yeah.
yeah, so I know someone who lived for a while there, a Westerner, and he mentioned that he other than Sanzen, he never saw the Roshi. The Roshi was basically like a Sanzen machine,
Yeah.
and other than that, it was the senior monks that would run things day to day. And but it sounds more at Sogenji, it was more you had more one-on-one contact with the Roshi outside of Sanzen. Like he would eat with
Um,
you guys and so
what he did was he had lunch with us,
Mhm.
breakfast and lunch, and that's pretty rare. And I
Mhm.
think kind of the Roshi's personality is kind of like I think he wants his hands on everything. That's kind of who he is. He kind of wants control. He wants to control everything.
Mhm.
So he's even going to lunch, and he's directing all of the ceremonies.
Mhm.
Um, so yeah, I would say that is a little bit different. So we did get to see him, and honestly, that was really wonderful for us. And then when you get a job, so at first when you're in the monastery, you're there and you're kind of surviving. You're just surviving, and you're out raking every day, and you're sweeping and raking and
Mhm.
digging holes and stuff
And
like
you
that.
guys call it Sabu. In Soto, we call it Samu. Is that the same
Yeah,
term?
Samu. Yep,
Inside?
Samu.
Yeah.
So you're out there, you're working, and then at a certain point, you've been there a little while, your zazen deepens a little bit, then the
Mhm.
Roshi gives you some kind of job, and
Mhm.
then whether you're like an assistant cook or
Mhm.
you're assistant to the Fuzui answering the phones and stuff like that, or you end up being helping with the ceremonies in the densu chanting.
Mhm.
um, and at first you don't have to do the big stuff, but you're involved, and then you might get a job where you're up in the administrative quarters, and so like for me at a certain point I was living about 15 feet from the Roshi for a few years,
Mhm.
kind of just on either side of him in different rooms,
Mhm.
and so that I found that really beautiful and wonderful for my practice.
Mhm.
um,
And from day one, you're part of the Samson process, right? There's.
For me, I had already done the Sanzen at Tahoma. So once you're in, you're in.
Mhm.
But some people have to wait a little while.
Mhm.
You show up and they're not sure if you're gonna stay there. Then and maybe it's not quite the right fit. We'll see. So you have to wait. And some people have to sit like in a whole 7-day retreat without doing Sanzen, and that's really hard. That would have been really hard for me.
Yeah. Did you have any sort of what's the phrase? Uh, um, where you come and you have to sit in a room by yourself for seven
Yeah,
days.
we didn't have that. Nope, that wasn't there.
Yeah. Mhm.
Yep, that's traditional. But no, I think the Roshi thought that we traveled all that way,
Mhm.
that we were just in.
Yeah.
Yep.
And so what were the initial Sanzen? Was it breath work? Was he working on your posture, your breathing, your your, I mean, like what,
Yeah.
or was it just growling at each other? I mean, like what? You know?
Um, yeah, the Roshi gives you the Sosokan. So that's
Mhm.
the deep exhalation, and
Mhm.
that's the practice. Um,
Mhm.
always the practice, but at first it's kind of just what you're doing.
Mhm.
And so the Sosokan involves extending the breath as far as you can,
Mhm.
and then a little bit more, and
Mhm.
without force. And
Mhm.
most of us, we use force, and we for a while we don't know how to do that, so we use force.
Would you get lightheaded at first?
Lightheaded. Oh
Mhm.
my gosh, all
Yeah,
kinds of stuff.
I really struggled with that at first. The
All
lightheadedness didn't.
kinds of stuff. You And I think the one thing that's confusing about the Roshi is he's so profoundly intense that people confuse that for force.
Mm-hmm.
And you got to kind of find that out for yourself. Oh,
Mm-hmm.
this, I can't force this. If I force it, doesn't happen.
Mm-hmm.
So, and what happens with that is through this Asokan, you start to your zazen starts to deepen, your samadhi starts to deepen, and then your whole system starts to unify. Your focus and your breath and the energy all become the same thing, and so you're coming in, you're breathing. The Roshi can see this one pointedness, and this is what he's looking for. So the Asokan is a tool to bring the person all into oneness. So that's the first practice. The Roshi's older brother in the monastery, Taitsu Roshi, he would actually bring a stopwatch into Sanzen as a teacher. Imagine that.
So his biological brother.
No, his older senpai brother at Shofuku. Yeah, so he brings it. Oh, man. So that's
so how long did he keep you on the breath work until giving you Mu?
Yeah, I was on the Sisokan for a while. I was on for 2 years.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, and I'm so grateful for that, actually. I think people should stay on the Sisokan for a long time. That's what I think. I think it's so fruitful and it's so powerful, and we're all doing it anyway. But to spend a deeper time really just hanging out in that is, I think, really beneficial. A lot of teachers, I think they'll give students a koan, kind of get them, okay, they can sink their teeth into it. But if the people can really get into the Sisokan for a long time, I think it's really beneficial.
And did you see, when he gave you Mu, did you see it coming? Could you feel you were ready, or was it kind of a surprise to you?
I was kind of waiting. I was eager. You're so eager. You're so, that's part of it. You got to have this fire in there. And so, I was very eager. I was very, why is it waiting so long? Why am I not doing the Mu? That's kind of how it is. Yeah.
You can't ask.
Yeah. You can't ask. And so no, I was eager to get on it.
So when you got Mu, did he give you any instructions? Or, I mean, obviously you're sitting in Sanzen line and you're hearing Mu,
Yeah.
So you probably had a sense of the process just from hanging out and seeing the scene. Was there any instruction at all, or was it like Joshu,
Yeah. Well, at first you get the Mu, and you're not vocalizing it. So often, you're just on Mu, but you're not, I don't think for us, I don't think we felt permission to vocalize it. And we didn't really have any.
I meant vocalizing it in Sanzen.
Yeah, even in Sanzen.
Even in Sanzen.
Yeah, not vocalizing it. So,
really?
To be honest, some people never yell the Mu. They can even pass without yelling, which is really interesting. But even in that, you're not sure when it's ready. And then I think at a certain point, the Roshi said, let's hear it, and so then I let that out. And I want to talk a little bit about that real quick, if we can. Like, people love to, I don't know what people think about the Mu, but what I would describe it as, it's an energetic transformation process where you, what happens is, you start to fill up, your process starts to unify, and then there's this overflowing of essence of energy. And the shout is this overflowing. It's an expression of this overflowing of energy. The cup,
unless you're feeling that, it would just be faking it.
Right. So you can yell, but but if it's not coming from this place of full and taut overflowing, then it's just like kind of faking. Or just, not interesting. So the Roshi's, he could see that, okay, I can feel that, so, I can start to let that out. And then that becomes a whole refining, beautiful process of deepening how to let that out and let that through us. So that's for me, that was a lot of the process with the Moo.
Mm-hmm. And so how long would you say did you work with Moo until it kind of started encompassing every moment, where you kind of
Yeah.
became Moo, would you say, so to say?
Yeah. I was actually on Moo a really short time. I was only on it like a year. And
Mm-hmm.
I know people on they're on Moo 20 years, 25 years.
Mm-hmm.
So I was really fortunate in my process to go through it. I
Was
think
this sorry to interrupt, was this pre-ordination?
pre-ordination.
Okay.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So I was very fortunate to be the Sosokan for me had really helped my process to really get going. And so with the Moo, yeah. So what happened for me was you're doing the Moo, which means you're there going Moo, Moo, and then you're like, fuck, I want to do something else. I want to think about something else. You know what I mean? And you're doing that, and and then at a certain point, you really start to fall in love with the Moo over and over, and it starts to just happen. Like you're there, and there's the Moo. It's just Moo, Moo. The Moo is just there, and it's not something you're doing. It's
Moo's doing you, maybe you could
yeah,
say.
right. And you're dreaming Moo. Wake up, Moo. Everything is Moo. And the bird cries and it's Moo. You're in a conversation with someone and you're just saying Moo, and you start to be able to see it. I can see Moo, like physically. It is. And so it's a whole process of unification. And for me, it was like climbing through this entanglement of how I dealt with reality. It was like the Moo was this way to kind of usher through this the cloud of my separation from this true experience that I had been waiting for so long. So the Moo kind of it was a way to I can hold on to the Moo while I go through this, and then this open vista is there. And then something finally, over a long time of doing this every day, seeing the Roshi, going to Sanzen, and then finally hitting this profound place with it and opening up.
Did you have any smaller openings prior to that you presented, or was it kind of just out of the blue, so to speak?
I mean, it's a beautiful process. It's such a beautiful process. Every day you've got to hit it. You got to hit it. Okay, you go see the Roshi every day at 7. Every day you've got to go see him. And so every day your body goes into this process. Like, I've got to touch this place. I've got to touch this place. And so you get good at it. You get, okay, I've got to bring everything into oneness right now and go see the Roshi. And so you go see him and it's an explosion, and you're there and you're crying and you're both laughing and then you go and you're still working on it. It's not deep enough. It's not deep enough. But yeah, it's a whole process. It's almost incremental. It's and then finally there's hopefully some kind of big change that happens when at a certain point. But yeah, you kind of touch it, but you're not quite ready. You touch it. So it's very much like this veil that you kind of peek through somehow, and then that's my experience.
So are you comfortable talking about the experience a little bit? Like like giving it
a little bit. Yeah.
I mean, without giving away too much of the. But I mean, like, because I think one of the main reasons I want to do these type of podcasts is I want to motivate people's practices, and the truth is, if it wasn't for 3 pillars of Zen, I never would have practiced Zen. So and I know a lot of people are not comfortable with this, but could you touch a little bit on the opening itself, to the depth that you feel comfortable?
Yeah. So let's see. So I think it was the fall training period is it. It's like, this is it. Everything is a build up to the fall training period. And then Rohatsu is at the end. Obviously, in December, there's the big final retreat is in December. But so you're gearing up. The Roshi starts to get pretty intense, pretty crazy, into the fall. Like he's gearing up. You're gearing up for that fall training period. The moon's really bright. The energy's really crisp. And for me, I think it was in the Dentsu at that point. I had really learned it really helped me open up the ceremonies. I was leading the chanting, and that had really opened me up to the energy, and I was let's see, it was at a certain point I decided every night I would just stay up. This was so day one probably of the O session. I think it was the September or October, maybe October O session. I'm going to stay up. I'm just going to stay up and do yaza every night and see what happens. And
no sleep at all.
No sleep. I was going to see what it was like and just push it and see what would happen. And for me, the yaza, I like to either do sitting or standing. I like both of them. I think they're both the same to me. It's just slightly different. But so I was going to just stand or sit every night as far as I could go and see what would happen. And also there was a typhoon. So that it was just kind of wild. It was a wild scene.
Like intense energy.
Wild, intense energy. And so I was staying up, and I think it was day 3 or something. I said, I'm going to sit here until something happens. I've decided I'm going to sit here until something happens. So I sat there, and at a certain point, I had a big Kundalini opening happen that changed my body. I would say just permanently changed it during that, and then kept going the next day, and then I think it was day 5 or something, maybe day 6. Day 6 of the session, I was the mukugyo. We do the banging of the fish drum and the morning choka, and I was mukugyo, and I lost it. I was just I fell away. I was in samadhi doing the mukugyo, and you just
say samadhi. Do you mean like there was no distinction or no you? Like I think there's different levels of. What's that?
Right. That's a really good point. That type of samadhi, there's so many different types, but that type of samadhi, I just was gone. I basically lost all my sense of time and space, and came out of it, and it was a good choka. The Roshi doesn't usually say it's a good choka, but somehow that came out. And then the mukugyo is it's designed to kind of help the chanting rhythm, to keep it going, keep the energy going. So it's a really beautiful job. It's a wonderful job. I love the mukugyo. And then day 6, I think what happened was we all had to do yaza in the zendo because of the typhoon. And so the yaza is after the full day of sitting, you have to sit again. And I was sitting in Seiza there, and some big change started to happen, and I sort of went into this what they might call Hakuin's ice cave. You just go into
precise and crystalline.
Yeah, just this real place of unknown, this real place of this, they talk about this hot iron ball in your you can't swallow, you can't spit out, and you're just trapped in that, and can't go anywhere, can't leave, can't run away, just sitting in that, letting it cook, burn you, and stayed up went back after that. Yazen went back, and I think I was standing that night, stood long time, and then in the morning I was.
Had you not slept at all through the session up
I
to
think
this point?
I slept, yeah, but
A
I,
little bit, yeah.
you know, and I wasn't laying down. I don't advise that people do that where they don't lay down, but I didn't lay down for a year, and that was a big thing for me. It was a big thing to
Okay.
keep the energy moving.
Mhm.
The tandem energy really powerful. I think that's a special type of training that you should do that. I don't think people should just do that out of nowhere. And there are certain things that it's tough on the body. So just to say, but and so then I was the Sanzen at Sogenji is there's the Kahojo, and then you ring the bell from the Kahojo and you go into the Sanzen room and you work with him. So the Kahojo has two places, and I was on the right side of the Kahojo, and the Kahojo garden was beside. Really,
You're in line for Sanzen.
in line, and
Yeah.
but I was hanging back, and I didn't run to Sanzen. That day I think I had stopped running at a certain point, and I was really cooking, and they were okay with that. And then Chisan had me stay back. She had seen I had been really Chisan's a Roshi's translator, and she's a profound teacher. I mean, she's
a Roshi in her own right.
She's a Roshi for sure for a long time.
Yeah.
And she had me stay back, and so I'm sitting there, and finally I had the cells had all sort of aligned. Everything I had been able to felt down to the molecules, and this channel, this opening, and so I got up and I went and I was gonna ring the bell, and I just started to cry, and this energy started to come, and just forever coming. And so he rings me and I ring the bell. I walk in and he can see that something's really happening. And, and he says, "You've walked it this honestly, and it was just bursting. This opening was happening, waiting in line for Sanzen, walking in, very fortunate time to be able to really have this happen with the Roshi, in real time with him. Very powerful. So
it almost seems choreographed in some ways.
Almost choreographed, I know.
Yeah.
And so now we'll move on with your training, he said. And so I was bawling, and I walked outside.
Did you I mean, what was your insight? Did you have a sense of okay, so this is absolute reality? I mean, or I mean, was there? I mean, what was the wisdom you feel? I mean, not just you've talked about it energetically, but what was the wisdom component that you feel kind of came up here?
Yeah, I mean, you just touch the main line of everything. You just touch it. You experience the main line of reality, and so in that the sense of Corey being, any sense of division there, it just doesn't really exist anymore. This sense of experiencing something doesn't really exist anymore, so you touch that, you're in that, and and so for me that was it was cellularly, it was really, they talk about the bucket shattering. It was very much like that for me. And then my perception changed, and then was kind of forever from this perception. My perspective was just profoundly different than for the rest of the time. Still is from this place of that connection. That's kind of my experience. Yeah.
So did you have any sort of crash or dark night of the soul that resulted from this?
No, not really. Although the Roshi, it's hard. You want to just bliss out. You want to just go. I'm just gonna, bliss out on this for a long, long time. And he throws you into new problems immediately.
So
So
you started, was it a checking question type of?
taking questions and then go on. And so you think, well, I'm just gonna like soak this up. I'm gonna sit in the park for a year, No, so yeah, so what that does is you can't rest in that, and so the Roshi then starts to talk about being able to he starts to show you how to use it, how to work with it, how to deepen it, how to bring it into everything. I think the Roshi, remember him telling me to listen to the pots singing, this is my homework, and as I was in the kitchen, and just like that, so then the process of the training is really letting that deepen, learning how to refine that, learning how to actualize that all the time. And I, for a lot of us, a lot of our stuff is kind of there, but we're coming from this other perspective. And that's just so profoundly different. Like my big question was gone. My big need to discover it wasn't there anymore. And, it wasn't going to be separate from my experience, like ever again.
So a definite sense of resolution for you.
Resolution for me, and then, obviously though, the training's hard, and they can throw, they like throw thorns in your eye, so it's hard, but yes, fundamentally, yeah, that was a big shift for me. Yeah.
What would you say your relationship to emotions have changed? Let's say something unfortunate happens to one of your children. What is your emotional relationship to that situation that maybe would be differently or maybe the same after the opening, if that question makes sense at all? Do you understand what I'm getting at all?
Yeah. Well, I'm very, very scared of or sad if my kids get hurt or something, that's for sure. There's no that's what are they always, my youngest asked me, what's your worst thing when you get hurt? That's my answer, so I'm a dad. I would say that my relationship with everything is not, it was a sense of struggle. Everything that I encountered was a sense of struggle before I had kind of, again, touched this kind of real place. My sense of the present moment, I was struggling with it cellularly. And so everything is like that now. So everything I encounter, you're in this place of directly touching it, directly, on top of it, the present moment. You're not outside of it in the same way that for me, I kind of was. I felt like I was, there was a bramble of perception in between what I was living, so you have I think problems I encounter, I think what it does is it makes you really, really fresh. So you're mad fully, you're sad, you're bubbling with tears, there isn't that filter in the way that, that, and so that can be a little tricky time for a long, for us for a while. We're just kind of raw for a while. We don't have a lot of skills for a while. When you have some kind of opening like that, you're not real skillful for a while. You're directly on top of everything you're doing. And so
did you catch any arrogance or sense of pride?
Yeah, I mean, for sure.
Aftermath?
No, I mean, that's what's so great about the training too, is, you feel pretty wonderful. You feel wonderful. I would say I'm kind of a, there's this part of me that's real, there's a certain honesty about my process that, that's there. What I would also say is that it didn't fix everything. Okay. And so what it does is it speeds up a lot of our stuff. So our physical stuff, our energetic stuff, it really puts it into motion. So, for me, I can't after all that experience, I couldn't ever look away from it. If I do, I suffer. It's better now, but at first you can't take your eyes off of it then, or step away from it. That keeps you very honest, keeps you very like clear with where you are. So it's like getting hit by lightning, and then you can't like step halfway out of it. It doesn't, you get fried, you know. So it's very much like that. The body really reacts to this big opening, and then you have to work with it for a long time to refine it and make it harmonious.
Do you find your relationship to conditioning and trauma has changed at all, or is that still there? Do you feel like the spiritual awakening is on the same level as like psychological trauma and conditioning, or do you feel like those are separate dimensions, or do you think they work kind of like on the same level? I'm not really being very eloquent the way I'm asking this, but
I know what you mean.
Yeah.
I think like the big question is kind of gone, but there's a lot of details there that
Right.
I think people can just act like they're not there, and that's kind of bullshit. So I think I think it really helps because it brings you this clarity to be able to touch what's happening faster, clearer, and be able to meet what's happening. But I think we still have to work on a lot of our stuff, honestly. We have to like, and again, the process makes you have to be honest, or you start to lock up. That's my experience. You can't deny reality, because reality is moving through you in this certain way that if you're kind of blocking it or avoiding it, it doesn't really let you do that. It will, you'll get sick. That's my experience.
Do you think it's fair to say that awakening kind of resolves things more at like kind of the existential level and not so much at the psychological level?
I think it does both, but I think still we've got a long time to integrate. We need to integrate for a long time. Like I think it does both, but I do feel like we got a lot of jagged stuff there that still needs working on. And I would say that's that they call integrating, ripening the sacred embryo. All that stuff is part of just, refining, harmonizing, bringing it all into actualization. So I think that's a lot of our task, and a lot of our task as people in the world out here is to be working on that stuff, and being healthy and being helpful because of that. You see. Go ahead.
Sorry. So it sounds like not too far after this you got ordained. Is that correct?
Not too far after that, I got ordained.
So did you ask, or were you offered, or what was the process there?
I asked, and what I asked, I offered something, but yeah, I brought it up, and what happened was, for me, it was like a guy like me who came from no one had ever heard of Zen except some, maybe one movie or something they mentioned, or whatever they think of it now. But for a guy like me, who was just a normal sensitive guy burning too hot, for this training to really change me, open me up, and then see it really had profoundly helped me, I got ordained partly just as a statement, like this is real. This can really change people. This is powerful. And also, I planned on staying with the Roshi longer, and then he wanted me to be a teacher at some point. But
did you? So as part of your ordination process, did you work on the precepts at all? Was there any sort of analytical look at the precepts, or did you have sanzen about the precepts? Was this discussed?
A little bit, but not too much. And of course, the precept koans are later on. I hadn't done those, but no, not too much of that. Not too much of that.
When you took the precepts, was it in English or Japanese?
English, some
Okay.
English, some Japanese. It's kind of
Yeah.
a mix
Was
there.
it 16 precepts like we do in
Um,
Soto or
I can't remember, but I had already done Jukai.
oh, you did Jujukai previously.
Jukai was a couple
Okay.
years before, so I had
Oh,
done
okay. I didn't
Jukai.
know. Yeah.
So I kind of had gone through all that.
Mhm.
And then the ordination, yeah, I don't, it's a whirlwind at this point, but I can't remember exactly some of those details. But you know, I was so fully in. It was so like, you know, I was, you know, all hands on deck for
Right.
sure. It was.
You thought this was your career at this point.
Yes, yes, and I wanted to give myself to the Roshi and give myself to the Dharma, and again try to be helpful. And my karma did change, and I came back, and now I have a family and all that. But I again, I kind of feel, I very much feel that I'm still kind of expressing that in just like a different, slightly different medium.
Uh, I want to respect your time and let you go pretty soon, but I want to ask you a few more questions about the Quan process, if
Yeah,
that's okay.
yeah.
So after you got through the checking questions for Mu, would he assign you a Quan verbally and you had to memorize it, or or did you just know like the next Quan? Like, did you have a list, or like how were? I know this is kind of like tedious, but like what like how are you actually assigned a Quan?
It's a good question.
Yeah.
I think the Roshi having foreigners, he actually gives you a piece of paper.
Okay.
Gives you a piece of paper. He has it behind him. He's kind of slick. Kind of brings it out.
So there's like the Corey pile, and then the
yeah. And to be honest, there aren't a lot of people. There aren't a lot of people there who are doing advanced practice. It's really hard. Most people in the monastery, they're so he maybe has a couple pieces of paper behind him. He's not there handing out 30 pieces of paper, which is good. So people, it's a profound practice. The beginning practices, that's where most people are, and most people stay there, and then they leave often before they get too far into that stuff. So you got a couple pieces of paper behind them.
So when you came back, are you expected to have memorized your koan? Like, because some of them are pretty long,
Nasty. I know.
But is that is that the expectation that you can recite the entire thing before your presentation, or?
Yeah, you're supposed to, and you can, if you need to, you can bring it in and cheat with something. I had really no. I'm not a scholar, and he wasn't thinking Corey's going to be, Ichigen is going to be like this perfect Japanese monk. So I never really felt that expectation from him that I would do everything perfectly. So we were doing this beautiful work, but sometimes I would have a piece of paper, or I would memorize if there were, most of them I try to memorize, but I would bring a piece of paper if I needed to. And then later you get these jakugo, these poems. To bring in a poem, I bring that on a piece of paper because it's archaic language.
So I'm gonna get to that in a second. So when you would do the presentation of your koan, would sometimes you do the same presentation? You'd be like, no, but then you do the same presentation and it'll pass you. Like, did you have those type of experiences, or like if you got the presentation down, were you pretty much good to go?
No, I mean,
at that point, like how much of it was still an energy and a resonance thing is maybe a better way to ask the question.
100%.
Yeah.
100%. And then anything you did was yeah, I mean, that was that was, he knows when you walk in the door, that it's clear. And so I mean, yeah, I mean, maybe not 100, maybe 95. You fall on the ground or something, but he already knows. So, but yeah, I think you can bring in a right answer, and if he doesn't feel it, if he's not feeling that that sense of a kill guy, this energetic flavor, then no way. And if you're coming with any mental understanding, he just will ring you out immediately. So you just get blasted into this receptive mode.
Mm-hmm.
It's over and over. Yeah, it's a weird, beautiful process, and I have a lot to say about that. But yeah, you start to come from this completely different place of interacting, and that's what's so powerful about the koan. The answers, I think, are really not that important. What you start to come from this other place of interacting, of wisdom that comes through when you stop reaching out, stop trying to figure everything out. And it's yeah, it's such a beautiful venue in there. Yeah.
And so after a successful presentation, you're expected to come in with your next Sanzen with a Jakugo, right?
He'd tell you, bring in a poem. He'd tell you.
And so would you, and that, is this before Zen Sand existed? Like, how did you actually, like, what was did you have a stack of books, or?
It was right there when Zen Sand was done.
Okay. Mm-hmm.
Yep. So I got in the beginning of Zen Sand.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. So I'd be back there,
mm-hmm.
going through it really fast at 2 a.m.
So you didn't do this, and this was during your free time is when you're expected to do this, right?
Yeah. Yep.
So you still keep the regular schedule for Zazen and Kinhin, work practice and so forth, and then when you have downtime, then you look through the.
Okay. So what you end up doing is, like, say there's a 3 p.m. Sanzen. Mm-hmm. So in the O session, so everybody runs up to Sanzen, and you take a right and you run up to the kitchen and you jump on in Zen San, and you're looking through there for 10 minutes, and then you try to grab one, and it's not right, but you grab it, and then you run in back into the Kohojo, and you take it in, and he laughs at you. Laughs at you, and then so it's like that. You're kind of looking it up, sneaking a look here and there.
So I do koans in the white plum tradition, which is Maizumi, Roshi, Yashitani, and as you probably know, we don't do capping phrases at all. And so I'm curious, like, what do you think the capping phrase adds to the equation? How would I articulate this? What are you getting? Like, what does it add to the process that you feel might be missing from a koan curriculum that doesn't use them? Is it just more resonance with the spirit of the koan, or what is the hook there?
Okay, so for my experience of what happens with the koan is that you with the Roshi, you start to learn to come from this place of having no idea what's going on, and then wisdom comes from that. It starts to kind of come out of that, and that's what happens with the Roshi and Sanzen, and then later that's what happens with the Mu, and then later that's what happens with the koan, is that you become receptive to this koan, and then in that receptivity, this koan starts to work on you and change you, and then so you're moving from this place of unknown, and then that and from there wisdom blossoms out of that. Okay, and so with the koan, often what will happen is you're working with it, and then something will start to emerge out of that process, and something's happening, and it comes through, and then you come in, and again you're Gosu Hoen, you're doing a koan with Gosu Hoen, and you're actually Gosu Hoen when you walk in. The Roshi sees there's Gosu Hoen, and he says, okay, bring in a Jakugo, and so you do, and you go and you read that book, and you're looking through it, and none of this makes sense, none of it's hitting me, shit, and then you're going, and then there's one, and it makes no sense, but it kind of like you break out in a sweat. Something just happened. Like, what is that? And it's like you've gone further into that mystery with it. So that unknown has blossomed further from the Jakugo. So that it takes you further into this koan, into the, it clarified more. this. And so you bring that in, and and it might not actually be always the perfect one, but it's really close. You can kind of tell, okay, not good, but okay,
Good enough.
do another one. Let's so he gives you another piece of paper, and so you go on to the next koan. So that's my experience. It takes you further into this clarified wisdom of unknown.
Okay. So we're at 70 minutes, or actually 80 minutes into the. So can we have you back and we could talk about you leaving the monastery and your work?
Yeah.
After that and so forth. Yeah, I know you have a class coming up, and I want to respect your time.
Oh, thanks. Yeah, let's do it.
Okay, great. Really appreciate it. Could you so if anyone wants to get in touch with you about your classes, or just to bug you on Facebook Messenger, what's the best way to get in touch with you?
Yeah, so you can go to my website, Corey Hess Body Therapy. I also have this group. I have a couple groups on Facebook. One is this internal process with Corey Hess, and that's my bigger group for people all doing my classes. And I would join that if I were you. It's really a wonderful group. And then we have a deeper group that does the intensives together, and we have a messenger group that we all chat on often, and we do these. We're always kind of working together in these rooms all day long, actually. Do
you guys sit together, or is it all body work?
Yeah, no, it's all that, and it's really, I've been surprised. It's been really cool. And then I have this blog. That's where a lot of people got to know me in the beginning, was this ZenEmbodiment.com, and that's where first people started to somehow find out about me. So that's a way to do it. But yeah, no, happy to be helpful if I can be. So yeah.
Great. Well, thank you so much. I really appreciate your time.
Oh, thank you. Okay. Yeah, good to chat with you. Thanks so much.
Thank you. Have a great day.
You too.
Bye.